Well, the plane suddenly dropped 1.5 kilometers before disappearing from radars. The website Flight Radar shows this change in altitude moments before the plane came down. Egyptian authorities are now saying the plane crashed almost vertically. Earlier, we asked former Vice President of the Australian and International Pilots Association, Captain Richard Woodward, about this detail.
If indeed the engines had failed, or one engine had failed, then the rate of descent would be quite minor. As the crew maintained power on the one remaining engine, it would have come down at only about 200 metres a minute. If both engines had failed, that would give you a dramatic loss of speed initially, but the crew would have had to lower the nose and commence what's called a glide descent. Even if they did that, it still would not come down at 1,500 metres a minute. It would come down much less than that. If indeed the aircraft had a double engine failure, it would glide for 20-25 minutes before it crashed, and it would not break up in flight. The commentary earlier said that eyewitnesses reported the aircraft was on fire before it crashed. That is often the case. 65% of all eyewitnesses report aircraft are on fire before they crash, when in fact they weren't.
Well, RT correspondents attempting to get to the scene of the crash have so far been denied access by the Egyptian Defence Ministry. We're keeping across the story from our headquarters here in Moscow. In September, Egypt's government forces started a major offensive against an ISIL affiliate on the Sinai Peninsula, where the plane came down. The group has claimed responsibility for a number of deadly attacks against security forces and even reportedly managed to destroy a Navy vessel with a rocket launcher. Egyptian officials, however, have rejected the possibility that the Russian passenger plane was shot down. Russia's transport minister confirmed there are no special flight restrictions in place in the region. Well, we are going to go now live to Cairo to speak to freelance journalist Alessandra Bajic, who's there right now. Alessandra, thanks so much for joining us again for the latest information. What stage are the rescue operations at this moment in time, or rather, at this point, the recovery operation?
Okay, yes, planes of Egyptian armed forces actually detected the wreckage area in the actual Al Hassan area itself, which is a mountainous site located near the city of El Arish in North Sinai. Up to 45 to 50 ambulances were actually dispatched to the site where the plane crash took place, and in order to carry the victims to hospitals in Suez as well as in Cairo. That's in coordination with the armed forces, and also other rescue operations were conducted to carry the victims from the site of the crash to Al Mazar airport and other airports nearby Cairo. And from there, that's being conducted by air operations, and from there, wounded will be carried to Nasser Institute and Dar el-Shifa hospitals. That's for the wounded, but for the bodies of the dead, they're expected to be carried to Zenhom morgue. And in actual fact, we received some information just earlier, about an hour ago, that they're expected to be brought to Zenhom morgue anytime soon. So that's really what's happened in terms of delivering search and rescue operations today.
It's likely, of course, that will go on well into the evening, and indeed the ongoing investigation will continue with the finding of those black boxes, which will, of course, be key to establishing what happened to this plane. In terms of the location where this plane came down and where the operation is ongoing, what sort of obstacles will the recovery teams face? We understand that the terrain is not hospitable, and indeed the region is volatile. Could this perhaps have an impact on that operation?
Mm-hmm. Well, indeed, the region has been volatile for some time now. Militancy has been on the rise inside Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, particularly following the military ouster of President Morsi in July 2013, and more protests that followed after that. Now, it needs to be said that attacks have regularly taken place against security and military targets. However, really, I mean, as we see that this has been another case of civilian losses and wounded in Egypt following last month's also death of Mexican tourists. That is I believe, causing quite a concern, particularly, if we think of the impact that will make on the tourism industry. I mean, again, last month, a group of Mexican tourists were killed mistakenly by Egyptian security forces in the western desert area, believing that they were terrorists. So, yeah, that's definitely adding up, more concern at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah. So a difficult operation indeed to conduct for those search and rescue teams and the investigators when they arrive on the site to establish what exactly has happened. Alessandra Bajic, based in Cairo, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us the latest news from that site.